Nick and Amy will be gone, but then we never really existed. Nick loved a girl I was pretending to be. Cool girl. Men always use that, don't they, as their defining compliment. She's a cool girl. Cool girl is hot. Cool girl is game. Cool girl is fun. Cool girl never gets angry at her man. She only smiles in a chagrin-loving manner and then presents her mouth for... She likes what he likes. So evidently, he's a vinyl hipster who loves fetish manga. If he likes Girls Gone Wild, she's a mall babe who talks football and endures buffalo wings at Hooters. When I met Nick Dunn, I knew he wanted cool girl. And for him, I'll admit, I was willing to try. I whacked. I drank canned beer watching Adam Sandler movies. I ate cold pizza and remained a size 2. I lived in the moment. I was team game. I can't say I didn't enjoy some of it. Nick teased out in me things I didn't know existed. A lightness, a humor, an ease. But I made him smarter, sharper. I inspired him to rise to my level. I forged the man of my dreams.
Hello and welcome back to Book versus Movie, the podcast where we read books that have been adapted into movies, and then we watch the movie, and we try to decide which we like better, the book or the movie. I am Margot P. of the Chingona Homesteader, and this is my good friend and co-host, Margot D. of Brooklyn-Fitchick.
Hello, everyone.
So we're doing a redo today.
Indeed. This is one of our oldest episodes, Margot. We recorded this, I believe, 3 years ago.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. We've been doing this a long time.
I was thinking about that today. Like, yeah, there's a lot of people, like I remember interacting with, like when we first started out, that a lot of them kind of dropped away. You know, we're one of the stalwarts out there. We're still doing it, still independent and still doing it. So, but
hey, go us.
Go us. But we recorded this like the old way we used to record things. So it never really sounded as good as it should. So I figured, let's try it again. I thought it was a good time to revisit the story. I love talking about this movie and this book anyway. So I thought, let's just kind of go for it.
Yeah. So before we get to that, though, we do have a few things that we just want to mention. First of all, we have a fantastic Facebook group. If you have not joined, to check it out.
Yeah. Just go to Facebook. You look up in the search engine. You can always like our Facebook page, and that's totally cool to do. And that way you'll never miss an episode. I always post there. But in the Facebook group, we are a little more interactive, and we talk amongst each other, and we have polls and things like that. So you just type in Book vs. Movie Podcast Group and ask to join, and then we will have you come and join us. And please come join us. And also, we're on Twitter at Book versus Movie. You spell out Book versus a Movie, and you can send us an email at bookversusmoviepodcast@gmail.com. And you can find us wherever you find your podcasts, even on Alexa, even on Spotify. You type in Book vs. Movie. On Alexa, you need to take the TuneIn app. I'm still trying to get Alexa to I say, Alexa, play Book versus Movie Podcast. It goes, I don't recognize versus movie. Which I don't know, which is annoying, but it works for some podcasts and others. So if you get the TuneIn app on your iPhone or on your iPad, it'll connect with the Alexa. I love listening to us over the Alexa. I just feel like we're so famous when I do that. So, but everywhere you get your podcast, it's Book vs. Movie Podcast. That's how you find us. If you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe. You'll never miss an episode. And if you love what you hear, yay, please leave a review. Especially just leave a 5-star review. Even just leave 5 stars. You don't even have to write anything. You could write nothing. But it's what Apple Podcasts really cares about. They care about downloads, but they also care about how many reviews you get. So if you guys really like this, please, leave a review for us. We would be so grateful. We don't ask for anything. And we will read all the 5-star reviews on the air.
We certainly will. And anything else we want to mention?
Well, I guess we could talk about we're brought to you by Audible. We weren't brought to you by Audible back in the day.
Yes.
So we're...
Oh, that's true. I know. I keep trying to think what's different between now and then. And no, we definitely were not brought to you by Audible back then.
No. So if you're listeners of Book versus Movie, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. And Margot and I are long time fans of Audible. Before we even met each other, I've been a subscriber to Audible, and it's great. You get the download for the books you like. You listen to them whenever you want. It's a virtual download. It's up in a cloud. It doesn't take up a lot lot of space on your phone if you only can do it 1 or 2 at a time like I can with my iPhone. So you guys, it's a great deal. You get your free 30-day trial, and that's at audibletrial.com/book-versus-movie. And you guys, Gone Girl, the movie we're talking about today, it's an audiobook. So if you're interested, check it out. Use the Audible. So there you go. audibletrial.com/book-versus-movie.
Yeah, I've actually been an Audible member for longer than I've been an Amazon member.
Oh, really?
That's how long I've been in. Yes.
Wow, you're old school.
I have a super old Audible account that it's separate from my Amazon account because that's how long hardcore Audible I am. It's actually a pretty good audiobook as I recall. And today we are doing our redo of Gone Girl.
We are. It's the Gillian Flynn novel. And I listened to that old episode, Margot, and I kept calling her Gillian Flynn. So that's another reason for us to redo it so I could pronounce her name properly. But I was telling you, this is the first book I got with my Kindle that I literally could not stop reading it. Like after end of every chapter, I had to keep going more and more and more. And to the point that my Kindle ran out of power. So I had to plug in my Kindle and wait like 2 hours before I could finish the book. And I remember just staring at my Kindle and trying to distract myself, just being like, please, I need to finish this book. Because it's such a plot driven book. Every chapter, like I said, there's like this thread, like, oh my God, what's going to happen next? And she's a great writer. This was a huge hit. It came out in 2010. No, excuse me, 2012. And that's what I read the book back in the day. I can't remember. Did you read it back then or did you read it for?
No, I read it for the show, but I remember everybody talking about this book. Have you read Gone Girl? Did you read Gone? Oh, I won't spoil it for you, but did you read Gone Girl? Yeah, everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, we are going to be spoiling it for you if you haven't read Gone Girl or watched the movie. Spoil it for you today. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get ready to be spoiled. Yeah, but no, I read it for the first time for the show when we did it originally, which you now tell me is 3 years ago.
Yes, I think it was. Yeah.
I can't even believe. Oh my goodness. And am I remembering this third novel?
It is her third novel. So,
is that right?
Yeah. So it's Gillian Flynn. She was born 1971 in Kansas City, Missouri. She now lives in Chicago with her husband and her, I believe, 2 kids. She was a TV critic at Entertainment Weekly. I remember reading her stuff. I've been a long-time subscriber to Entertainment Weekly. She lost her job in 2008. And that's, like, you and I talk about this, but the economy kind of went into the toilet in 2007, 2008. And for a bunch of us, especially living in New York at the time, it was very scary because a lot of people started losing their jobs. And she was one of those people. She wrote her first book, Sharp Objects, in 2006, which is coming out soon on HBO with Amy Adams. Her second book is Dark Places, 2008. That was a movie that starred Charlize Theron. And Gone Girl, 2012 was the book, and the movie came out in 2014. And we should say that Reese Witherspoon bought this before it even got into people's hands. She bought it as a manuscript, and she got David Fincher involved. And then David Fincher said, "Great, I'm going to hire somebody else to play Amy."
Yeah, she's like, doing
what?
Yeah.
So she doesn't do that anymore. But yeah, it was so famous, and then people were like. Then Gillian Flynn wrote the screenplay as well, and so she said, I had to change it for the movie. So then the whole thing, the tension was, well, is this going to be a new movie? Does she change the third act? Because the third act, and we're going to talk about this, it's a little controversial. Some people like it, some people don't. And but anyway, we'll just dive right into it. Do we talk about the book first, or is it a mishmash? What do you think?
I think we have to do a mishmash, and I just want to say just at the outset that it's a great book and I really like the book and I really like the movie. So there's your first spoiler right there. And I think historically, you and I, as I think back over the years now that we've been doing this, historically we tend to really like when the author writes the screenplay, with the exception of Jaws. That did not work out. I mean, he didn't end up. But anyway, if you hear our redo of Jaws, you'll hear all about that one. But generally speaking, like Princess Bride, Postcards from the Edge that we just replayed recently. If you have a really good writer, it usually translates super well to film, and they need to be the ones to do it, and decide what sacrifices have to be made and what things need to be tweaked when you're going from book to movie. Cider House Rules, that's another one we just did, right? That was a great one, and he had to make a lot of changes between the book and the movie. But yeah, I think maybe we should probably do a mishmash
of
this one. And I will say, if you've never read Gone Girl, definitely read it. It's super good. I tend to be super cynical about sort of, I don't know, about books like this. I tend to be like, I sort of see the plot points coming a mile away, and I'm like,
Right.
I'm just waiting for it to go. But this one, no, this one totally fooled me.
It totally fooled me as well.
It fooled me, and then it fooled me again.
Well, the thing is that people, when you get this book, people are like, okay, I don't want to tell you too much, but there's a twist. So it's like an M. Night Shyamalan movie. I never can say his name properly, but you know what I mean? Like there's always something that happens that takes a weird left turn. But for hers, because she does it so brilliantly. So we go back in narration between a married couple and Gillian Flynn, she's a very happily married woman, and she was just a couple of years married and pregnant with her son when she wrote this. And she told her husband, I have an idea about write a book about a marriage. And then she would just tell him, and he was like, you know what? Go for it. I'll be your muse, go for it. And so we have Amy and Nick, and I love this character of Amy, by the way. I think she's such a brilliant character. She's by the way, a total sociopath, right? I mean,
oh yeah. Oh, she's cuckoo bananas and scary smart. She's like so scary smart. So the book flashes back and forth in time, and at the beginning of every chapter she tells you where in time you are and whose narrative you're hearing.
Right.
So the first part of the book is intercut with Nick's point of view and Amy's diary entries.
Right.
From many years before, when they first met at the beginning of the relationship. And it flips back and forth like that for a while, of him discovering that she's missing. And then you get a diary entry of like when they fell in love, and then he's calling the police, and then, flips back in time, and they're going to get married and so on. And that's how the whole first part of the book goes, which is not unlike the movie, but you can't flip back and forth too much like that in a movie when you're trying to set up something like this, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And in the book, the big difference is that they meet cute at a party in Brooklyn, but they then don't see each other for like 8 months. And then they run into each other again. And in the book, just like in the movie, they both have cool magazine jobs. You get the feeling he has the cooler job. He like works for a pop culture magazine, and she writes quizzes, romantic quizzes for women's magazines, and she has a degree in psychology. Amy, when she was growing up, though, we meet her parents, and her parents they were both psychiatrists, or they're both therapists. I think so, yeah. Yeah, and so Amy's mother tried many, many times to have a baby, and they had just a horrific story about how many miscarriages and stillborns that they had. So when Amy was born, and she turned out to be just this beautiful, healthy, bright creature, they immediately fell in love with her. Of course, she's an only child, and they really wanted her. But her parents decided to write a children's book series, and so the children's book series is based on their daughter and the character. And I can't believe these people did this. They're psychiatrists. They should know better. But they called her Amazing Amy. Like they used her daughter's real name. So Amy kind of grows up semi-famous. People kind of know her, and her parents they reflect the book over her growing up. The same thing with the Amazing Amy. And it's wildly popular when she's young, and then up until the point she's a teenager, but now she's in her 20s, like her late 20s, and her parents, you find out, they kind of were a little loosey-goosey with their finances, and Amy had come into like over $1 million that they at a trust fund, because they gave her some money for that, of course, because they're basing it on her. But they approach Amy and say, Amy and Nick get married, and her parents say, I'm sorry to say this, but we're like $875,000 in debt.
Mm-hmm.
So Amy said, oh, well, we really need to borrow this money. Can we please borrow it? Meaning that's never going to be paid back. So Amy says, okay, sure. Do you need the money? I'll give you the money. So Amy gives them the money, and then at that time, Nick is laid off from his job, and then she's laid off from her job. And this is, like I said, it takes place in 2008. This is you and I talked about this before, but you and I were living in New York at the time, and I think we're both freelancers, but it was a very scary time. Like a lot of people got laid off around that time.
Yeah, a lot of industries just completely went away. So yeah, they both lost their fun New York lifestyle like overnight.
Yeah, they had a Brooklyn apartment that she owns, and it kills me, because what happens is that she sells the home, at a loss. She and Nick decide to move back to North Carthage, Missouri, because it turns out Nick's mother has breast cancer, and it's pretty advanced. And so they ran out of their options in New York. And by the way, in New York right now, there is just this year alone, it's February when we're recording this, there have been like 250 jobs in magazines that have been eliminated because of mergers.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, this industry is just,
Ouch.
yeah, this is the beginning of, I guess, like the end of that, like this whole mergers and these magazines getting smaller and they're folding like crazy. So so they moved to North Carthage, Missouri. And Amy, all this time, by the way, like she really believes that Nick is like the greatest guy, and she really like tries to wow him. And we find out that when Amy was in high school, she says that there was this girl that was stalking her, and she gave her like a really hard time. She says that one of her old boyfriends named Desi was like obsessed with her. So she has these people she claims that are totally obsessed with her. So Nick, that's all Nick kind of knows. And then she and Nick move to Missouri. Well, it turns out Missouri isn't doing that great either in this recession. And so they buy this McMansion. And the way they describe in the book is very different than you'll see in the movie. Because in the book, it's like they have this one house and then everything around them is abandoned.
Right.
And there are a lot of homeless people walking around.
Which happened in those years. I know it happened here in California during those years where they built all these McMansions, these huge housing developments, and people, the crazy, you remember the loan scandals that happened, and people just basically walked out of their homes, walked away from their upside down mortgages. And so, yeah, you would have these whole block after street of empty, abandoned McMansions.
Yeah, it happens.
So yeah, they live in a development like that kind of situation.
And you're not quite sure of the finances. I think Amy has like maybe $150,000 left in their savings, and she gives it to him to start a bar with his twin sister, whose name is Margot.
Yep.
And she spelled her name properly, Margo. But he calls.
That's how you spell it.
That's how you spell it. Just so you guys know. But I think we talked about this last time. Does anybody ever call you Go? Because he keeps calling her Go. That's his nickname for her. Yeah, people call me Mark.
I've never been called that in my entire life.
Never.
Of all the nicknames people come up with for Margot, that's one I've never had.
Yeah, it's very unusual, I have to say. So Amy disappears, right? Nick comes home, and it looks weird. The front door's open, but she's not there. And so Nick calls the cops, and the cops come over, and everything just looks weird and out of place. And if you've ever, we've all seen those people on whenever somebody's accused of being criminal, if there's anything happens to a woman, her husband's always automatically assumed to be guilty. And then we have the Nancy Graces like screaming about it, and it becomes really kind of crazy. And so she's playing on those themes. It becomes very tabloidy. Nick's loss and Nick being worried, and he honestly doesn't know where she is. And then they're both unreliable narrators, I have to say. So Amy presents herself as this very angelic, perfect person, very gracious. She's always giving to people. And Nick presents himself as a solid guy, just trying to do his best.
But you also get from the very beginning, from the very first chapter, they said, I'm sorry, I have to shift. Hold on. Sorry.
She said shift.
Shift. As in move.
Yes.
You get the sense from the very, very beginning chapter that he is not terribly happy in the marriage. And the opening chapter is on the day of their 5th wedding anniversary.
Right. That's important.
So you get chapter 1 is coming home, like you're saying, he's coming home and, oh gosh, what's going on? But he's already like thinking about, well, I'm not really happy in this marriage and I don't know what happened to us. But then we flip immediately to her diary entry of when they first met. So it's really interesting the way that she paces, the author paces the story and builds the suspense. It's really, really cool.
It is. And so he and Margot and Nick run a bar together. They're twins. They run the bar together. It's called The Bar. And he also teaches magazine writing at the local college. We're saying this industry that's going away eventually. You find out that he's sleeping with one of his students. Also, what's going on with Nick is that his mother's dying. And they're so poor, by the way, that his mother sells blood twice a week. It's like a thing she does with her. I know. It's so devastating to read that. And then Nick has a father who has dementia. And the father shows up quite a bit in the book. He barely shows up in the movie, but in the book, he's he's there a number of times. Nick's under a lot of stress. You know, he lost his job, which was his identity. He doesn't know what his relationship is with his wife. He suspects there's something not quite right there, that there's something going on there. His mother dies at one point. He owes money. He's sort of lost, and he's having and it turns out he's having an affair with a student, a very young girl named Andy. And so when the cops find out about this, it doesn't look so good. Now it starts to look like Nick is guilty, and he doesn't understand. You know, he comes across badly on television. He's just a very awkward guy. And then, so at what point do we get the flip? The twist.
So for her, you get one of the things that kind of comes out in the story, flipping back and forth, is that every year for their anniversary, the wife comes up with this like a scavenger hunt for the husband, and she writes these like little rhyming clues, like little poetry clues. And at first he's like, oh, this is so cute, and then eventually, like over just a couple of years, the scavenger hunt is sort of a test, like how well do you know me, how much do you care about me, kind of thing. You know, how about this inside joke, or do you remember this date that we had this date? And it's all like it's not just like for funsies, it's really testing him and to see how committed he is to her. And so it's their 5th anniversary, like we said, the day that she goes missing. And so one of the things that the police find in the house is one of the clues for the scavenger hunt for the anniversary. And so he's trying to do this. So simultaneously, he's also doing this scavenger hunt while the police are investigating him and investigating her disappearance. And she's presumed dead. It's pretty much presumed that she's dead. And I'm trying to think, when is the flip? The flip I think comes. So the police keep finding incriminating stuff against Nick. It keeps looking worse and worse and worse.
And even Margos starts to question.
Yeah. And it's starting to be like, stuff purchased, extravagant purchasing on the credit card. And Nick is like, I didn't buy any of that stuff. What are you talking about? And once they find, he figures out that his wife has been buying all this stuff to frame him and has hidden it in Margot's woodshed. Mm-hmm. And that he also pieces it together that, oh, she knows that I was having an affair, and now she's framed me, and he doesn't realize that she's still alive at this point, but she's trying to frame me, and so now there's no way I'm going to go to jail for this. And then that's where the flip is, when he is really backed into the corner, and you're like, this guy's going to jail,
right? That's
when the flip happens.
And that's when we find out that Amy is not only alive, but she planned all of this. And she planned it out months in advance. She's good at planning. She's fooled pretty much everybody. One of the last gifts that he finds is a Punch and Judy doll puppet, as these wooden puppets, and one of them is missing the mallet. So she's doing all these clues like, I'm onto you. I know you were a scumbag. I know you cheated on me. I'm gonna make you pay for it, and I'm ultimately gonna embarrass you. And I'm gonna see how you handle it, and then you're gonna pay for it. And so she's going off, and there's a lot of suspension of disbelief you gotta have here, guys. You gotta just sort of if you try to analyze it too close, it doesn't handle tough scrutiny very well, this plot in the book or the movie. It can fall apart. You got to think of it as sort of magical thinking or whatever. It is what it is. This is the universe of the book, so you got to just kind of take it what it is. But she leaves. She goes away, and she stays at a campground. She's got a few $1,000 she's managed to squirrel away, and her plan is basically, she says, I'm going to wait until he gets arrested, and then I'm going to kill myself, and then they're going to find my body, and then he's going to be he'll go to trial, he'll be executed because they have the death penalty there. That's her whole plan. And then she stays at this camping grounds kind of park, and she meets these people. She cuts her hair. She does the things you're supposed to do, to disguise your appearance. But she becomes friendly with this couple, and they pretty quickly find out who she is, and that's maybe not who she is, but that she has money. And she's not very good. And Amy was so protected in her younger life that she makes kind of dumb errors because she's not skeptical enough to, like, you know what I mean? So she kind of sets herself up, like, she doesn't hide the money very well. So they kind of figure it out pretty quickly.
she sort of takes it for granted that she's smarter than everybody else.
Right.
And so, so she makes these not very tactical,
yes,
some tactical errors. So yeah, she did. So she's pretty clumsy with the hiding under a fake identity gig.
Yeah, she came up with the idea, but she didn't think it all the way through. Like she didn't think like she could meet. She's very snobbish when she meets people. She's very beautiful and she's educated, and so when she meets these kind of thinks of them as hillbillies or townies or whatever, but she doesn't realize like they can be just as smart as you are just because they're not book smart, and so they figure her out pretty quickly. So they take her money from her. So now she's screwed. Where is she going to go? So she looks up Desi. And Desi was the boy that had a big crush on her and like never got over her. And she stays at his lake house. And she's it's just crazy. And at the same time, Nick is being, raked over the coals by all of these women who host these crime shows at the time, which is, it still happens. And so he's really desperate to clear his name and to find her. And she's staying at Desi's house. And then he figures out in the book, he's interviewed by a blogger first, I believe. And yeah. And he gives a compelling interview to her.
Yeah, there's more of a history, and in the book you get, although you don't know how much of it is true or not, in the book you get a much longer version of the history between Amy and Desi. In the book, Desi is he Brazilian?
Yeah,
he's like South American or something. He's
ethnic.
Yeah. He's ethnic, so strike one. And Desi has a mother who's like super controlling and wants them to get married. And so there's this whole long thing about Desi, and she says that he was basically like stalking her. But you don't really know if you can believe that or not.
Right. She's an unreliable narrator, and and by the way, she's also a little nuts. The way she looks at the world is not the way you and I would probably look at it. So the information she takes
she's
in.
She's a sociopath.
Yeah, she's a sociopath. The information she takes in is
that.
just different. Yeah, so there's that. Exactly. So she's staying with Desi. Desi makes her feel like all of a sudden she's watching Nick being interviewed on TV, and Nick gives a very compelling interview on TV, basically like, man, I screwed up. I'm so sorry, Amy. You deserve so much better than me. If I can get her back, oh my God, I'm going to make it all the way up to her. And Amy falls for it because it flatters her ego. And so she kills Desi. And how this happens, I don't know. But she gets in the car and she goes back to North Carthage where he is. And there's camera crews parked around his house and stuff like that. And in big dramatic thing, she shows up walking up the driveway all bloody and saying, hey honey, I'm home. I'm back. And so Nick brings her in, and basically the doctors believe that there's one police officer, Officer Boney, who doesn't really, Detective Rhonda Boney, she doesn't really believe what she's doing, but she's kind of outnumbered. Everybody else is going along with the narrative. They like the way the story's going. It's like a surprise ending to everybody. And then so Nick feels sort of forced to be with her. And then this is where, for the only part of the book where I was like, oh, come on. But basically she has his semen stored in the freezer. And and she makes herself pregnant.
In the book, it's a little more complicated. Yeah, she somehow has harvested his sperm,
like from tissues and stuff. Like it's
it's a little. Yeah, you just have to be like, okay.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the only time. And I really, like I said, I loved reading this book. I loved reading it again. It was super fun. But every time that comes up, I'm like, oh, come on. Really?
Yeah.
So she's pregnant. And then I love this in the book, and they don't have this in the movie, but that she and Nick are writing their story. Okay. And so Nick's doing.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And Nick's doing it from his point of view, and she's doing it from her point of view. And she finds out what he's writing. He's basically saying, she's crazy. Help, help, help. This book is a cry for help. And she finds out about it. And she says to him, you know what? You delete this book, or I'm going to leave with this baby. You'll never have anything to do with this unborn child. And I will retract everything I said. And he falls for it. He doesn't want to not have contact with his child. He knows she's nuts. He knows this isn't the best thing for him, but he feels trapped. And so he deletes his memoir, and he stays with Amy for the child's sake. And that's the book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he totally because he's very smart too. So
Yeah.
he totally figures everything out. He puts all the pieces of the puzzle together, and by the end of the book, he knows exactly what he's dealing with. He understands that she is a sociopath and a murderer, and she could totally kill him in his sleep and make it look like it was a self-defense thing. She could he's pretty much just at her whim.
Yeah, she's totally at her whim, and that's how they end it.
Yeah, it's more something about the ending in the book, because he's writing the truth, and you're like, yeah, he's going to get the truth out, and then you're like, no, don't delete the truth. So it's a little more. It's a little more like, again, it's like another twist. It's like yet another twist. Like, she's never going to have justice, just ever.
No, yeah, exactly. She will get away with it, basically. She's getting away with everything she wanted to. She's killed a person, and she'll kill somebody else.
Ugh. She could easily do it. She may have. We don't even know. We don't know.
We don't know.
She's cuckoo. So yeah, it is a great book. It's such a page turner. And but like what was the book we were talking about last time? Oh, Mudbound. Similar to Mudbound, a lot of the stuff in the book of Gone Girl is internal dialogue. Yes. Kind of stuff. It's all in the characters' minds. They're thinking, they're strategizing, they're trying to put pieces together. And how on earth you can only show so much of that on screen unless you want it to be nothing but voiceover. And so to put this story on screen, you have to make some choices and some cuts, and things have to be tweaked and adapted and so on. So I thought she did such a great job with the script.
I think so too. Do you want to play the trailer now?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Nick Dunn, you're probably the most hated man in America right now. Did you kill your wife, Nick? Everyone told us marriage is hard work. Not for me and Nick.
As you all know, my wife, Amy Elliott Dunn, disappeared 3 days ago. I had nothing to do with the disappearance of my wife. I have nothing to hide.
Has Amy got friends we can talk to?
No, not really.
You don't know if she has friends, you don't know what she does all day, and you don't know your wife's blood type.
Just being a good guy, so everybody can see him being a good guy.
Well, you really don't like him, do you?
All I'm trying to do is be nice to the people who are volunteering to help find Amy.
I will practice believing my husband loves me, but I could be wrong.
You ever seen that guy in the glasses before?
Amy is the kind of girl who attracts admirers.
Whoever took her is bound to bring her back.
I'm hoping you can tell me what this means.
Want to solve Amy's treasure hunt?
You seen this girl around here?
Yeah, I remember her.
I know you. I saw you at the volunteer center.
I wanted to help.
What'd she want?
She wanted a gun.
We are all scared, but we are all here now.
I feel like something to be jettisoned if necessary. I feel like I could disappear.
The hallmark of a sociopath is a lack of empathy.
Amy lost a lot of blood in there. Then somebody mopped it up.
Why would they mop up the blood if they're trying to stage a crime scene?
Whatever they found, I think it's safe to assume that it's very bad.
I'd finally realized I am frightened of my own husband.
I would show you, as if you're doing a deposition, what to say, what not to say.
A trained monkey?
A trained monkey who doesn't get lethal injection.
She's going to eat you alive.
You assaulted her?
It's not good enough for you?
I hit her?
It's not even close.
Absolutely not. I never touched her.
We now believe Nick is involved in the disappearance of our daughter.
Without a body, without a murder weapon, their only hope is a confession.
I don't know anything yet.
You need to tell me.
How was your marriage, Nick?
Are you asking me if I killed my wife?
Man of my dreams. This man of mine may kill me.
What about my son, Nick?
This man may kill me. In her own words,
This man may truly
kill me.
You ever hear the expression, the simplest answer is often the correct one?
Actually, I've never found that to be true.
So, as we said, the book comes out in the summer of 2012. Reese Witherspoon bought the book. In June of 2012, she went right to David Fincher. And by the way, that whole scene, there's an abandoned mall scene that I love in the book and in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
She said, Gillian Flynn said that she wrote that with David Fincher in mind. Like, she's such a fan of his work. She was so excited when he decided to do the book. So she's like a huge fan of his. She knows a lot about movies, by the way. Her father taught movies, taught at college. So yeah, so she's very smart. So should we talk about our cast? What do we think of the cast?
Yes, I think the cast is fantastic.
I do too. I like Ben Affleck. I'm sort of, I don't always warm up to Ben Affleck, but I think this is like the great part for him. I think he's perfect.
I agree. Ben Affleck is definitely one of those people that, like, we were just talking about somebody else that I feel this way about. Sometimes I think they're awesome, and sometimes like, ugh.
Right.
And it just kind of depends on the director.
Yeah.
And Ben Affleck is definitely one of those persons. He's great in this, I have to say.
Mm-hmm.
He's pretty great. He's exactly like, he somehow manages to convey, and this is what the character is, and this is a difficult thing to get, I think, on screen. He's super smart, but also incredibly dumb.
Mm-hmm.
He makes some really stupid decisions, and like, he's sort of like a good guy, but he's also kind of smarmy.
Yeah. He's kind of douchey,
Yeah.
But and then also he could be very generous and be a good person. Yeah, he's got some decent impulses in him. He goes back home to take care of his parents because his sister needs help with that. But at the same time, he leaves it for his wife. Amy winds up really taking care of the mother more than he does. And so he comes back for the good reasons, but then he kind of, shuffles off the responsibilities to other people. So like he's got, like you said, he's a good guy, but also kind of a douchebag and kind of like making really poor choices. And you wonder what's behind that. And maybe it's just because he's miserable in his marriage. But we should say this is Rosamund Pike is our Amy. And we put a poll on our Facebook page. And of the women that wanted to play Amy, it was Reese Witherspoon, it was Charlize Theron, Emily Blunt, and Rooney Mara, and we asked you guys who you would pick if you couldn't have Rosamund Pike, and it was Emily Blunt by a mile. So people like Emily Blunt.
I can see that.
Yeah, but Rosamund Pike is great.
Oh, she's fantastic. Oh, I think she's just brilliant.
Yeah.
She's playing one person, but she seriously is playing like 8 people in this movie.
Yeah.
Because you have the New York Amy, who falls in love with Nick, who's like real hip, edgy, cosmopolitan writer. And then you have Amy, who she is with her parents, and you can't tell, like, do her parents think of her as an actual person or not, or just like a cash cow or a fictitious character. Like, it's a weird relationship. She's different with them. And then you have Amy, who is in Missouri, who's angry and weird and frigid and
neglected,
just neglected. And then you have Amy, and I'm talking about in the movie, not so much in the book,
right?
Because again, in the book, it's all in her head. So the Amy in the book is more one consistent person than in the movie. So then she goes to the trailer park or the campground thing where she's staying, and she puts on this like Southern accent kind of.
Mm-hmm.
So she's a completely different character there. And then when she goes to Desi's house, she plays a battered, like a wounded animal kind of character. Completely different, like anything we've seen so far in the movie.
And also she's different, and she's also different in Missouri too. But because when she's around, like with Noelle, I love Noelle Hawthorne, Casey Wilson in the movie, she cracks me up. But she's trying to make friends with the pregnant lady in her block. Because basically, she's a different person then too. Like she acts, her physicality and everything is very different. And then at the very end, when she comes home, she's talking differently. I mean, like there's so many things that she does it so subtly and so brilliantly. I mean, she's the one Oscar nom, by the way, is for Rosamund Pike for this movie. They got a lot of Golden Globe noms, but not that. The only Academy Award nomination was for Rosamund Pike for Best Actress.
It's a phenomenal performance. Yeah. And she just fluidly moves from one persona to the next. And she manages to have those like scary shark dead eyes.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
So creepy. Yeah, really great. I really love the casting of her parents.
Yes.
Could they be any more New York therapists?
Upper West Side.
the Upper West Side therapist who's also married to an Upper West Side therapist.
Yeah.
Wow. They're great. And what's the name of the actor who plays Go?
Oh, it's Carrie Coon, and she was 9 years younger than Ben Affleck. So she plays his twin sister. She's in Fargo. Did you see her season on Fargo?
Yes.
Oh my God, she's so good, and she's so good in this movie.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
And I love.
She's the voice of reason.
Yes, and then we forgot to mention in the book and in the movie, and it's a little different in the book, but it's Tanner Bolt is the lawyer that he hires, and he's the lawyer that will get any guy that's convicted of killing his wife. He's really good at getting him off, right? So they hire and it's Tyler Perry, who I think is so good in this movie. I forget he's there, and then I'm like, oh my God, he's so great.
I know. I was like, oh yeah, Tyler Perry.
He's an actor.
No, he's really good.
Yeah.
He does a fantastic job. Where he plays this lawyer who, like you said, deals in douchebags, and yet you don't hate him. So you somehow he manages to play it in a way that you sort of respect this guy.
Yeah.
I don't know how he does it, but he does. So yeah, he's great. The Patrick Fugit from
Almost Famous.
Almost Famous, thank you. From the kid from Almost Famous. I really like. He's really a great naive cop who believes all of the stereotypes and all of the tropes, and he's ready to convict Nick within the first hour. Let's take him in.
And
there's blood in the kitchen. Let's take him in.
He buys everything. Yeah, he goes right along with public opinion, and then he's paired with Detective Rhonda Boney, and that's Kim Dickens, and she was also in Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. We covered that in the past, and she was also in Thank You for Smoking. And I want to play, this is a clip, it's just them when they're first interrogating him, and he doesn't know her blood type. So here we go.
You got to the bar around 11 today. Where were you before that, just to cross that off?
Well, I was home. I left at 9:30. Got a cup of coffee, newspaper. I went to Sawyer Beach and read the news.
Did you visit with anyone there?
Well, I mean, I kind of go to Sawyer Beach for the solitude.
So, your wife has no friends here. Is she kind of standoffish, Ivy League, rubs people the wrong way?
She's from New York. She's complicated. She's got very high standards.
Type A? Well, that can make you crazy if you're not like that. You seem pretty laid back. Type B. Speaking of which, Amy's blood type.
God, I don't know. I have to look it up at the house.
You don't know if she has friends, you don't know what she does all day, and you don't know your wife's blood type.
Sure y'all are married?
I maybe it's type O.
Where are her folks? New York?
Yeah.
Can they get here in time for this press conference tomorrow?
Tomorrow? I have no idea. I haven't talked to them.
You haven't called your wife's parents
I mean,
yet?
you can't get a signal in this building. I've been in here talking to you.
Well, call them, please, Nick, now.
Fine.
Should I know my wife's blood type?
I don't know if you guys will catch it, but the very end of the scene, I love it, is that Patrick Fugit kind of whispers to her, am I supposed to know my wife's blood type? And she just shakes her head. It's like, no.
No, of course you're not.
Of course you're not.
I don't know Todd's blood type. He doesn't know my blood type. I don't even exactly know my blood type, come to think of it. I only know that the only reason I don't know it is because it's never come up because I'm anemic.
Oh.
I have anemia, and I always have since I was a little kid. And so no blood bank has ever had the least little bit of interest in my blood. So my blood type does not come up that often. It came up twice when I had each of my kids. But so I don't even know my own blood type. I don't. So no, you're not supposed to know if you're not married. For you single people listening,
yeah,
that's not a thing.
Okay.
Knowing your spouse's blood type is not a thing unless your spouse has some kind of medical condition that you need to know that.
Or if they have really rare blood, if it's B negative or something like that, then AB negative. Yeah, that would be good to know. That would be good to know. But otherwise, okay. And let's the other people in the cast. Oh God, Celia Ward is in here. Did she make a deal with the devil? She's 60 years old.
Yes, Ward made a deal with the devil in 1987.
She's so good. She's so beautiful, and she's so great. She's one of the last people to give Nick an interview. Oh, it's Lola Kirk and Boyd Holbrook. They're Greta and Jeff. They're the two slimy people that Amy meets that rips her off, that steals her money. And I have to tell you, Margo, I didn't see this movie in the movie theater, and I can't remember why. I always rented this movie. I always fast forward that scene where they take the money from her because
I know
I can't take it.
It's hard to watch.
It is. It's so scary. I'm so scared for her. It's crazy. And I love, Rosamund Pike, by the way, she gained 13 pounds. So there's a scene where like Amy's really thin, and then Amy, for her, Rosamund Pike is chubby because she's just so slim. So but she has the belly that you get if you drink, you just like live on junk food for a couple of months. So she has a little bit of that. And then we meet Neil Patrick Harris as our Desi Collins.
Yay! He is fantastic.
I like him too.
He's so good.
He's great.
He's so good. And like we were saying, and one of the things I liked about the movie adaptation is I feel like she did a really good job visually, or all of them, the whole team did a really good job visually of establishing, again, Nick and Amy as unreliable narrators.
Right.
And so, Nick says that Amy told him that, what's his name? Desi, that Desi, stalked her and she had to get a restraining order. And so when you meet Neil Patrick Harris, you're like, wow, he's rich, he's obviously like, he's super educated, but yeah, he could be a stalker.
Yeah.
But you don't know. Maybe he just really cares about her. You don't know.
Right.
Yeah. It's really cool. You really can't tell.
And there's a scene that where Nick meets. This is great, like screenwriting. He meets with one of her old boyfriends that claimed that Amy claimed that he raped her, and then she later on dropped the charges. But this guy, it's an interesting scene because he's like talking to Ben Affleck, like, dude, I've been thinking about you. Like, is she still crazy or is she not still crazy? And he basically say like, dude, your wife is nuts. She is a sociopath. She will hurt you. She has no feelings about that whatsoever. She just gets what she wants. And so you get this idea of like, just over and over again, that this woman is a sociopath. I loved the Missy Pyle as Ellen Abbott, who's being our Nancy Grace, with the blonde hair and the snarling into the camera. Oh.
Oh, and what about the chicken Frito pie?
Oh, I love her. I can't find her name, but every time she says that, I'm like, I really want to try that. That's probably the worst thing in the world to eat. Like, it's so bad for you, but that sounds delicious. It sounds crazy, but I love that. That's a very quick scene. She gets a little selfie with him, and Nick is kind of a dope. Like we said, he's an idiot. Like, oh, pretty girl wants to talk to me for a second. I'll smile. Yeah, I'm supposed to be looking for my wife that's missing, but even just in that flick of a second, he's such a dum-dum. He just does that, which just cracks me up. And then Emily Ratajkowski, I think that's her name. So she's our Andy, and she's the I love it when they say in the movie, like he says, she's my mistress. Like,
yeah, she's a kid.
Like they have a pied-à-terre on the other side of Carthage, It's just silly. But she's the girlfriend. I love the fact that Ben Affleck picked her because she was in the Blurred Lines video. But I thought she was really good. I mean, for the part.
She does a good job.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why she's not acting more. I mean, I always see her in the Daily Mail. She posts a lot of photos on Instagram, so she's got like a million jillion followers. But I thought she was really funny. And I love the line where she said that in the book, Andy is super desperate, right? She's super thirsty for him. She's just constantly, call me every day, call me every day. This Andy is not that interested in him. Like, she's kind of like, yeah, whatever. And I love that she said she's rehearsing for Godspell. Like, that's the musical.
Yeah. I know, it's so awesome.
That's the best line ever. Yeah. But then she comes around and then they clean her up and they make her look like a victim and very solemn and everything in one of those scenes. So, like, the noose is tightening around Nick, and then he realizes, I mean, the scene where let's just say this. So many things happen that are completely preposterous, but I kind of love it anyway. But I love the reveal when they have the woodshed and then all that stuff that's in there that she's been buying and just storing in the woodshed. I just love it. Yeah, I mean, it's just...
But nobody noticed her putting a 60-inch plasma television.
Well, like just...
in a tiny little woodshed in the middle of nowhere in Missouri.
It would be delivered... The whole place is jam-packed. Like, there would be UPS guys and FedEx guys constantly knocking on everyone else's door because no one's home to receive it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You would need at the very least a hand truck.
Yes.
To get this stuff in and out. This is not just like, disguise it as an old lady and scurry it into the woodshed. It's kind of major stuff. So I agree. It's like, okay. So somehow she managed, I get like maybe they were at work, but even so.
Yeah, you would still every once in a while visit that woodshed and everything looks brand new in there. Nothing's dusty or whatever. But he's following along with her clues, and she's with Desi, and then she sees Nick being interviewed, and Ben Affleck's really great in the scene where he's talking to Celia Ward and saying, "Yeah, I really regret this," and then she's like, "I got to get home," and then we have that really incredible scene, so gruesome, but it's she convinces Desi to have sex with her. She finally will have sex with her. They don't have sex the whole week she's with him, but she loses the weight. She chops her hair off. She looks better. She looks like she did when he first fell in love with her. And then they go into bed together, and she slices his throat while they're having sex. And it's just such a gruesome scene to watch, and it's just incredible. And then Amy gets into the car and drives home, and drives right into Nick's arms, and says, "Hey, hi, I'm home." And they take her to the hospital, and she's so good in that scene in the hospital when she's describing what happened to her, and oh my God, I'm just glad to be here again. And Detective Boney's trying to like poke holes in her story, but everyone's just so caught up in the narrative. They don't care. They don't really care if it's true or not, really. They just kind of like accepting it. And so Amy comes home to Nick. And in the movie, there's a scene where they're both naked in the shower. And there's one place she figures they don't have a wire. They can't tape them. And she's basically saying to him, like, look, we're going to be crazy together, and that's just the way it's going to be. And that's kind of just how they end the movie. And it's just, it's great. It's crazy. It doesn't stand up to tough scrutiny. No, they have that series of everything that's wrong with this movie, on YouTube, and
yes,
and
all the plot holes.
All the plot holes. I mean, there's so many things. There's like at one point they're like the sign for Amy for her. She graduated from Radcliffe, and you see her diploma, and somebody spelled Radcliffe wrong. So it's just like, it's little things like that, and the 804 tips line for Amy. It's like, that's like too many letters. Like that wouldn't work. Like there's but that's just silly stuff. I mean, for the most part, I go along for the ride.
Oh, you totally do, and I think it's well written, and it's perfectly cast and extremely well performed. So you are totally transported into this cuckoo story. It's a great movie. It is I wish I had seen it in the movie theater. I would love to have been in a movie theater full of people in that first shot where you see she's still alive. Because everybody had to have been like, what? Yeah.
And I like that cool girl scene.
Great scene.
That's great writing. And that's somebody who's And that's somebody who did a lot of bad dating in New York, which is something I could relate to. I was like, oh yeah, I know exactly what she's talking about. So yeah, it's and I bet that would have been hilarious to be with people like, oh my God, she's alive. That's all I can say.
Yeah, but I agree. It's so funny. I also fast forward a little bit in the scene where the camper people take her money, and it's an interesting scene to me because we know at this point that she is like not even human. She's a crazy, just devoid of any kind of human sentiment, willing to kill herself, literally willing to kill herself just to make a point.
Because he can't win. He can't win.
Just to win. Yeah, just to win. And so we just hate her. And we know she gave herself a black eye to look like a battered wife, right? And the guy, one of them says something like, I bet nobody's ever even really hit you, and they hit her. So she, so at the very least, somebody actually hits this woman. But still, you can't help but feel sorry for her.
Well, she's there's something wrong with her for sure. And that could have been just from the day she was born. But she's also, you can't go back. I can't help but think about like growing up and being the amazing Amy. Like that's kind of a lot of pressure,
Yeah.
And the only child, you have nobody else to like share that burden with. I mean, that's got to be hard.
I can't imagine how that would mess with somebody's head.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, it's ridiculous. But I was just fascinated about how the director and especially the screenwriter, the novelist, manages to make you feel you feel scared, like you were saying, scared for her.
Yeah.
And sympathy for her in that situation. And she's a monster. But you're like, no, I can't watch. Yeah, it's so well done. It's so well, it's cuckoo, but it's very well done.
I agree. It was budgeted. It was filmed for $61 million, and it grossed $370 million. So it did very well.
So which do we like better?
I think I'm going to go with book.
Yeah, the book is... I love the movie. But the book is it's just more fun. It's just more, it has more stuff. It just has more details, more tasty details to keep you turning the pages. Yeah. And I just love the ending of the book. I understand that why you just couldn't have that I get it. But in the book, it's just so choice.
Yeah.
To have that ending where he deletes his testimony, basically.
And he goes along, and it's, in a weird way, he's kind of turned on by it too. Like he's kind of still turned on by her. Yeah, yeah. He's kind of warped too. You get that feeling about him.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I got to give this slight edge.
Slight edge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so what are we doing next?
Well, we have a new listener, a new follower, and she reached out and said, I would love to if you guys would do this. And we've been asked about this a couple of times. It's The Prestige, and it's a book, and it's a Christopher Nolan film. And it's about, let me read it to you. It's an illusion gone horribly wrong pits the 19th century between two 19th century magicians. It's got Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman. And it's directed by Christopher Nolan, and Terrible Consequences. Yeah.
I have never heard of it. And my apologies to anybody else who has suggested it, that I missed your suggestion. I have never heard of this book or movie.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds cool. Okay.
I heard about this before, and it's got 8.5 on IMDb and 75% on Rotten Tomatoes, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, awesome. So we'll do it. Very good. Thank you.
We're doing The Prestige.
The Prestige.
Interesting.
And the book is not that long. It's like 300 pages. So.
Oh, okay. That's pretty good. So where can people find us on the internet?
You can find us at Facebook and Twitter. You spell out Book versus Movie. Once again, if you want to join our group, you type in Book vs Movie Podcast Group in Facebook, and you can join our group. You could find us on Twitter at Book versus Movie. You spell that out. And if you have any comments or suggestions, you can send them to our email at bookversusmoviepodcast@gmail.com. And once again, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You type in Book vs Movie, and that's where you'll find us. And on Apple Podcasts, if you could please leave us a few stars and a review, we will read all the 5-star reviews on the air. We would really love that. And Margot, where can they find you?
You can find me all over social media. All of my social media handles are at She's Nacho Mama, SHESNACHOMAMA. My website is thechingonahomesteader.com. And where can they find you?
You can find me on all social media at brooklynfitchick. That's on Facebook and Twitter. I mainly interact on Twitter and also on Instagram, and my blog is called brooklynfitchick.com. That's where I post for all the shows that I work on.